Greetings of peace. In this video, I'm going to talk about why be a convert. And this is not a call for conversion. It's actually a call for passion. I believe that everyone has it in them to draw upon the spirit and the passion of a convert. And for me, being a convert means seeking truth, seeking God, trying to figure out how to show up as your best self or become your best self so you can really make a change in the world. And right now, obviously, we really need that. So I want to talk about what I believe makes converts special, partly to give a shout out to my fellow converts, to let them know that they're very special, and give you the reasons why, but also to really highlight for people what it is that it takes for someone to convert. So I think that they can fully appreciate the journey, because it's a really big deal to change your entire worldview, to question every aspect of what you believe and who you are, and especially when you're doing it in the context of thinking about being Muslim. So let me just start by sharing with you what I think is really special about converts. So think about how hard it is to even think about being Muslim, even think about considering Islam, especially if you have no Muslims in your family, especially if you grew up in America or you grew up in any context where the mainstream narrative about Muslims is scary, right? They're terrorists, they're, the people that do really crazy things. It takes a lot of bravery to even consider that this is something that you want to think about. It means that you are willing to think out of the box. You're willing to question the status quo. You're willing to read and research and do the hard work, because quite frankly, there is a lot of stuff out there that you need to overcome. And in my own journey, I started thinking about becoming Muslim when I was in graduate school at Cornell University. I was getting my MBA. And, interestingly, I am recording in my childhood home where everything sort of started. This is where I grew up. And so I'm here with my parents this week of Ramadan. And, thank God I have the blessing of being with them in this very special time. But I will share my story about how things really miraculously went from one end of the spectrum to another. But when I first started thinking about becoming Muslim, I think it was really largely a reaction to a lot of darkness that I had experienced, both as a child and through high school and even college. And by the time I arrived at business school, I felt like a serious imposter. And I was really thinking about my life and trying to decide why everyone else had it together, why everyone else seemed that they knew what they were doing, and why I felt completely lost. I looked great on paper, but inside I felt completely empty and, without anchor. And I recognize now, looking back on that I, for a very long time, even from a child, had a serious longing for God. And it would manifest as emptiness, kind of a feeling of like a visceral hole in my stomach, like something was missing. And so from the time that I arrived at business school and met some friends, met some Muslims, I thought, well, maybe religion is what I'm missing. I always believed in God, but I didn't believe in organized faith. My family I was baptized Catholic, but we never went to church. My extended cousins and aunts and uncles were different types of Christianity. It's largely because they were trying to, I think, assimilate into American culture. But I always believed in God. So I went and I checked out a book from the library and I started reading about Islam. It was called The Religion of Islam by Maulana Muhammad Ali. And I was shocked that as I was reading about the theology, it was everything that I already fundamentally believed. But I was like, wait a minute, what's the catch? Everything here is what I already know and what I believe about being a good person. But why is it that everyone hates Muslims, and why is it that Islam appears so scary? Like what am I missing here? And that was one piece. And then the other piece was that looking at my own identity, I thought, well, okay, I knew I believed in one God, so that was my starting point. So I knew that I was either Jewish, Christian, or Muslim. And I thought, well, I wasn't born Jewish, and so I'm not one of the chosen people. And I also believe that Christianity and Islam are, real religions. And then I had a problem with Christianity because I'm a logical person, and the idea of Trinity just didn't sit right with me. I felt like, if anything, my God is logical, and that just makes no sense. And so I thought, yeah, but that would mean that I would be Muslim, and how could that be? It just seemed really impossible. And if I told my family and my friends that I was going to be Muslim, that they would think that I'd gone off the deep end. But I thought, well, okay, I have a couple of Muslim classmates. They seem nice enough. They seem normal enough. Let me keep going. And, so a lot of the time in really working through whether Islam was the right faith for me had a lot to do with my own self-identity. So it really took a lot to study and overcome a lot of misconceptions and misunderstandings. So the point is that it took a long time for me to overcome a lot of barriers. And the only way that you overcome those kinds of obstacles is through reading, through research, through questioning, through praying, through talking with God, and really taking the time to dig in. And I'll talk a little bit more about my actual, conversion story in bits and pieces, as I've said in the past. But the point is, it takes a certain kind of person who is willing to do that hard work, to overcome a lot of obstacles, to start questioning, to start being open to the possibilities, to be able to research, to dig in and really explore. And it takes some time. It takes a long time. For me, it took 2.5 years to work through a lot of the preconceived notions and ideas that I had about Muslims and Islam, and replace it with real knowledge. And when you finally decide to take that step, it's a huge step. You have to think about how your family is going to react, how your friends are going to react, what you have to do to change your life and your orientation. Of course, everyone is different depending on their situation. And this whole journey of finding God and finding your way to conversion is really lonely, because oftentimes you don't really have someone to talk about it. You don't have someone who can really relate to what you're doing. And in my case, as I said, it was a lot of reaction to wanting to come out of darkness and find the light, find something clean, something better, find a moral framework, a consistent way of living, and finding and reconnecting with God. And so it was very interesting for me when I did finally convert, and I knew that my family would have a really strong reaction. Ultimately, they were very unhappy that I became Muslim, and things got so crazy and difficult that I ended up being estranged from them for 8 years, because they really couldn't accept my decision. And I was adamant that, this is the truth, and I'm not going back. And I'm really sorry that you don't agree, and I'm really sorry that you don't like what I've chosen. But I know in my heart and I know in my soul that this is right, and I'm not going back for anyone. And that takes a lot of strength and a lot of conviction, and it took a long time to arrive at that feeling, because it required that I was able to replace a lot of preconceived notions about Muslims and Islam and replace them with real knowledge. So, I know that there are a lot of converts that have had similar stories, where they've had struggles with their friends, with their families. If they haven't, they were really blessed. I've come across many people who've had loving and supportive families, but every person's situation is different. And in all cases, it's challenging. I've met a lot of really wonderful Muslims along the way who were born Muslim and felt that they needed themselves to go through a conversion journey. And this is what I really believe, that I think the process of really turning inward and thinking about what you really believe and what you think is important and what will happen to you after you die and what your relationship with God is. All of these things are like the big questions of this life. What is the point if you don't know why you're here or what your purpose is or what's going to happen to you after you leave? I mean, these were questions that I used to grapple with from the time I was in middle school, and I would drive my friends crazy because I realized now that I was always seeking. And that is what has always sort of driven my desire to find out, answer some of these big questions about life. And I think that everyone at some point comes to that crossroad where they're like, why am I really here? Like, what am I doing? What is this all about? And that is the opportunity to really grab that conversion journey with both hands and figure out, like, why is it, what do I believe in? So I really think that everyone needs to go through that, and through it, hopefully can find the passion to be a convert. For me, finding Islam made the most sense, and it was worth sacrificing, a relationship with my family for 8 years. Now, we're here in the first week of Ramadan. You see, I'm in my family home. So let me share with you a Ramadan miracle. I'm here recording this in my family home. So 30 years ago, when I told my parents that I had converted, and we went through a lot of hardship, and I literally thought that I would not see them again until the final day. At the time, even though it was one of the hardest things I'd ever had to go through, God knew that that was actually the best thing for me. In my journey, I needed to be on my own to really discover what I believed. And I needed to rediscover myself away from my familiar surroundings. And in that time, surprisingly, both my parents also became religious. And that wouldn't have happened otherwise. And over the years, God helped us to come back together again, reconnect, rebuild our relationship. And now we have an amazing relationship. My parents are extremely proud and huge supporters of the work that we do at the Asuli Institute, where I'm the executive director. And my dad, who has never been expressive, tells me regularly that he's so proud and that the work we do is incredible, and that he thinks the world of us. And it took 30 years for that miracle to unfold. So, here I am now caring for my parents as they are now elderly. And it's truly miraculous. So all of that struggle paid off. So now a word about converts. In my experience, I've met many converts on my journey. And I'm always struck by people that have really high IQ, really high emotional IQ. People have been through stuff. People have been through trauma. And I think by definition, they need that trauma to open their hearts and their minds. People who are searching for something. And people who have an incredible amount of empathy, but come to the religion with a lot of intellect. And you need that because you're questioning a lot. And everything for me, especially in my journey to Islam, came through that filter of questioning. Like, why? Why do we do this? Why do Muslims do that? And I think that is a really, really important quality to maintain. And what I found is what we have in common is we've been searching to go from darkness to light. And we know that the purpose of the Quran is to go from darkness to light. At the Asuli Institute, we spent 3 years doing ethical deep dives into every single surah, every single chapter of the Quran. 114 chapters took us 3 years to complete. It's the first direct English Quranic commentary. And to say it was life-changing is an absolute understatement. And we didn't start doing that until I had been Muslim, I think, for 25 years at least. I didn't know I could know the Quran like this. So I really want to encourage you to check out our Project Illumine Quranic commentaries. And we just started dropping Project Illumine 2, which is the Sirah. And it's a completely new engagement, a fresh engagement for our time. And it is absolutely eye-opening. I thought that the Quran was, of course, beautiful and life-transforming in an English translation, because I don't read Arabic and I don't know Arabic. But when we dug in and started seeing the layers of meaning that go way beyond your typical English translation, it was absolutely mind-blowing and completely a game changer. And then working through 114 chapters, Dr. Khalid Abul Fadl shares his personal lifetime journey. And what's original to him is that every single surah has a unique moral message. And we dug into that and much deeper. And it is clear that the purpose of the Quran is to take people from darkness to light. And I believe that is something common to converts that I've met. And it's also common to heritage Muslims who have also gone through their own conversion process, where they started from the foundations. And just to say that heritage Muslims who do that are also incredibly brave and have all of these same qualities, and in fact have some even more difficult challenges, because when you're born into a faith, you have baggage. It's hard to know what is theology, what is culture, what is part of your ethnic heritage. You know, where does one start and where does the other one end? And to challenge the status quo and to challenge some of the things that you've learned from the time you were a child, even if they don't make sense, that takes a lot of bravery, and it takes a lot of intelligence and hard work and grit. And these are the qualities that we all need moving forward to keep our wits about us in this very dark world. So once again, I would really like to give a shout out to all of my convert friends, my convert tribe, whether you were born Muslim or not. And if you're curious about Islam and you're not Muslim, I want to encourage you to dig in, check out our work at the Asuli Institute. And if you're Muslim and you are trying to reconnect with your faith, same thing. Come check out the work that we're doing. Everything is from the wellspring of the beauty of our tradition, and we are trying to bring that back to life in a very vibrant and beautiful way. And I, for one, have found that when you really engage the Quran as it's intended to be, it gives you enlightenment, empowerment, liberation, and freedom. And that has been what has allowed me to keep my passion of a convert for over 30 years. One of the things that I absolutely love about our work at Asuli is that we work based on the premise that this is the most important journey. There's nothing more important than why you're here and what your relationship with God is about. And so one of the core values is that no question is off limits, that there is no embarrassment in religion, and that you absolutely should question everything. What could be more important than to understand what God wants from us? And it's such a freeing and liberating idea that, especially for converts, that you can and should ask as many questions as you can. And to say, I don't know, is fine, but that we continue to search for truth and search for God. And ultimately, I think the goal is just to find a way to find our true selves and liberate ourselves so we can do the best job we can be here as vessels for God's service. Accept this invitation to find within yourself the passion of a convert, and feed that passion with a lot of learning, with a lot of good knowledge, with a commitment to truth and seeking God and seeking beauty and knowing yourself, because we know in our tradition, if you want to know your God, you begin by knowing yourself. And I believe that that's the key to so much change. So thank you for listening. And if you have any questions that you would like me to address, please leave them for me in the comments. And I hope you're enjoying a wonderful Ramadan, and that this month will be spiritually beautiful, nourishing, uplifting for you, and hopefully the start of a very vibrant convert journey. Thank you so much for listening, and see you next time.